It's the Wonderboom 2.
The Wonderboom to who?
No, not 2. It's the Wonderboom 2. It's the Wonderboom 2. It's the second generation Wonderboom. Unlike the first generation, you can play a pair of these in stereo. I've only got one, so I can't do a stereo test. However, I want to do a little video on this because it is a speaker that I'm quite fond of. I do like as a package. I'm not saying it's a fantastic listen. Now, I did do a 360-degree speaker shootout. I did it when I did my, not long ago, Anchor Soundcore Flare 2 speaker roundup. And I put the Wonderboom 2 in there alongside the likes of the U-Boom and the Stormbox and some mini rigs. But I wanted to do a video just about the Wonderboom 2 because although, you know, it's not the greatest speaker. It's a very safe sounding speaker, by the way. But I like it as a package. I like this really rugged form factor, this little chubby little thing. It's very easy to live with. So a quick look at the Wonderboom 2. Just to say quickly in terms of specs, this is going to cost you 65 quid. It came out last year. It's from UE. They don't give you a lot of specs. So they haven't given us the battery capacity. They haven't given us the power output in terms of what's RMS. We don't know, but we can have a good guess. We do know that it's a standard codec SBC. We know it's Bluetooth 5. It doesn't have an auxiliary input. It does do true wireless stereo pairing. It charges by mini USB. It's pretty light at 420 grams. You can drop it in water. It is IPX7. You can drop it in water up to 1.5 meters for up to 30 minutes and it should sound okay. It does float, but it's not going to sound very good. It's going to sound a bit soggy. So it's not for playing in water, but if you drop it, it's going to be safe. What have we got? We've got woofers either side of your volume up, volume down, which means face on, you can get stereo. We've got the, I'm not going to say subwoofers, but we have the passive radiators on the front and we have another one on the back. So 2 passive radiators, 2 woofers left and right. So when you're face on, you're getting left and right stereo. And it's going to sound the same from the back because it's the same orientation. Passive radiator, woofer, woofer, and that's the same that way around. And if you hear it on the side, you're going to be face on to the woofer. It's going to sound a bit more sharp, a bit more defined, but you're going to have slightly less bass. So you can actually, it is a true 360-degree speaker. Not all of them are because of how they have the drivers orientated, but I would say that's pretty much a 360, not in terms of the mini rig, of course, upward firing, and that's truly a 360-degree speaker, but that's pretty much a listen anywhere. In terms of YouTube latency, pretty good, 80 milliseconds, and that's as good as any of my speakers are doing. 2 hours on max. It's not a lot, but the problem with some of these smaller speakers and even some of the bigger speakers, voltage sag, you still got battery capacity, but under voltage kicking in, it won't play for longer than 2 hours. However, 66%, you will get I got over 9 hours. That's a quick round up the specs. Another look at the speaker itself. We have multi-function button on the top. I was to turn that on. That light comes on to tell me it's powered up. Got the multi-function button. I can use that to either pair with another UE boom and get true wireless stereo pairing, or I can use that to play and pause and actually skip forward on tracks. If you turn the speaker around, you've got what looks like a little tree, and I think this is what they call outdoor mode. However, it's the louder mode, and of course louder modes simply cut bass, add a bit more to the high end, sounds louder to your ears because you're less sensitive to the bass frequency. So more on the high end sounds louder. Also takes more power to drive the bass, so it's of better use in terms of going loud to stick it at the high end rather on the bass. If you turn that on, it goes white. You know you're in outdoor mode, or you could call screechy mode. Is it screechy mode? I will get onto that to tell you, but a lot of these outdoor modes are simply screechy modes. That's an overview of the Wonderboom. In terms of what does it sound like, these are my frequency response measurements. Wonderboom 2 frequency response, 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, 100% volume, 20% and 40%. Some semblance of being lower bass heavy. Well, it's peaking at 100 Hertz, but that is the peak. From about 50% volume onwards, it becomes upper bass heavy. The upper bass being more prominent than from 100 Hertz down. but the actual frequency response is very consistent. Apart from some bass adjustment and low volume, the actual sound doesn't change much, well, at all, in any other respect. It's not particularly flat. If I take the 60% volume, peaking about 78 dB, dipping about 68 dB, so we're plus or minus 5 dB, and we're hitting about 70 Hertz, just over 70 Hertz, plus or minus 5 dB, 70 Hertz to 14 kilohertz. So at the sort of volumes you're likely to play at, it's upper bass heavy, bit of a dip in the mids, peaks again around 4K, and then again just under 12K. That's default mode. Outdoor mode, 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, 100%. The weird thing is, it's not what I was expecting. So up very high-end heavy. Actually, it's flattening out the sound. So that dip in the mids is gone. It's becoming much flatter. What's happening is you're losing everything below the upper bass. Around 150 Hertz. Outdoor mode is cutting the bass, but it's making the rest of the sound actually a bit smoother. But it will sound a little bit more brittle because you've lost the bass. But outdoor mode, I quite like it. As outdoor modes go, it just cuts the bass a bit from 150 Hertz down, and that extra power goes to smoothing out the rest of the frequency response. Shame we couldn't have both the smoothed out frequency response and the bass. Don't forget, this is measured face on with woofers firing to the sides, left and right. So face on, I mean, it's not completely balanced, but it's not a bad listen. It does have that upper bass kick, doesn't go particularly low, but as I said, in real life, it sounds pretty. One thing I should have mentioned, you may be wondering, where's the power indicator light? You don't get an indicator light. You have to hold the plus and minus down, well, the volume up, volume down buttons together. And that's your tone. So you're going to have to listen to that tone, and that will tell you whether it's over 50%, around 50%, or low charge. So that's basically telling you where you are in terms of battery capacity. So what does it actually sound like? 53%. Let's have a quick listen, default mode.
Tides will turn without us, and I'll be killing time like I might be a cartoon. Take it in real life like haiku. I know we got the good vibes when pieces fall right into place. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding. 'Cause you got me
We do have two modes. We do, as I said, have our default standard mode, and then we have our outdoor mode. You want to know, well, what really is the difference? You called it screechy, mate, but is it? Nah, well, let's have a listen.
I'm on my own, broken alone. I feel the rain crashing down all around this empty town. I'm searching for the lost and found, but you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare. Just stare, 'cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me.
So actually, no, it's not a screechy mode. It actually is a bit more balanced, except that If cut off the bass, so it sounds more high end, so it might sound less balanced because you're not getting the bass, depending on how your ears are tuned and what your taste is. However, in terms of how the rest of it, say 300 hertz up, how does that sound outdoor, indoor? It's flatter. It's a flatter response, outdoor mode, just haven't got the bass. So they're just making different use of that power that was used for the bass, cut off the bass, smooth out the frequency response, and actually to the ears it sounds a bit louder. So that's how it sounds, but you need to get an A/B with something else that you might have some idea sounds like, and then you really know where you are with the speaker I'm trying to test or compare for you to give you an idea of how it sounds. As I said, I did do already a 360-degree speaker roundup if you check out my Soundcore Flare 2 video. So what I thought I would do in this one, what's almost similar, I would give you an A/B with JBL Flip 5, JBL Flip 4. Why these two? Well, to me, in some respects, these two fulfill the same need. Flip 5, the Wonderboom, very, very travel friendly. Small, go in a rucksack, go in any, go in your suitcase, whatever. Don't worry about it getting bashed about. Very rugged form factor and can give a decent, can sound quite nice. I had my reasons why this is not my go-to, and this does sound better in a pair. But also, I still get questions about the Flip 5 versus the Flip 4. All this time on, you'd think by now it's a very easy question to answer. Stereo, more high-pitched, more bass mono. But to give you an idea where the Wonderboom 2 is, and if you're one of those people interested in Flip 4 versus Flip 5, let's compare them all. So 33% volume. So the 33% test, bearing in mind, Wonderboom, the woofers are off axis. They're firing to the sides. Flip 4, Flip 5, woofers are on axis to the mics. And this does make the Wonderboom 2 sound a bit more bass heavy in comparison than in other orientations. So Wonderboom, in this orientation, face on, woofers to the sides, does have the highest upper bass peak, 96 Hz, 16.8, Flip 4, 22.2, Flip 5, minus 20.8. But the Wonderboom has nothing else after that upper bass peak. When it comes to deep bass, 60 Hz, minus 53. It's a ton down on the Flip 4 by 11 dB, and even more down on the Flip 5 by 14 decibels. So Wonderboom can hide its lack of bass with a big upper bass kick, but the Flip 4, even the Flip 4, has way more low bass, and the Flip 5, more low bass again. This is at 33%. This is at low volumes. So depending on what you're looking for at low volume, you may actually prefer the Wonderboom 2 if you don't want any bass and you just want a clear sound at lower volume. Probably should have mentioned in terms of the comparison, about £89, about £65. So the Flip 5 is does cost a little bit more. Flip 4, get on eBay for about 50 quid now. So actually, second hand, a little bit cheaper Flip 4. They all sound a bit different and they all did different things. However, only one of these speakers is 360 degree. Can you guess which one it is? Yes, it is the Wonderboom. So these speakers only really make sense on axis. If you are moving about, to me, far more sense, a proper 360 degree speaker. Now, that was 33%. What about 66% real world volume levels?
I live my life on the run. I say I'm not giving up. I may be living alone, but I still believe in love. In a similar way, I feel I'm losing my conscience. Traveling for days without my knowledge of provenance. Throughout my life, you called me a renegade. Oh, through all my lows, you said we could start again. But I'm a renegade of your love. But I'm a renegade of your love. You say I make you nervous, a tragedy, I'm a beautiful disaster, a reckoning, you wonder how I got this way. You think I'm someone to be saved, someone to clean up and tame. Oh, some things never change, never change. Oh. You think I would look pretty on your arm once you cover up my bruises and battle scars, but it always ends the same. Can't bear the things I've had to face, got you crying on your knees in pain. Oh, some things never change, never change. Oh, you'll break your back to make me feel again, suffocate to make me breathe again, lose your mind from endless pain. Some things never change, never change. Oh, redemption never came. I stopped asking for forgiveness, cause you should know only fools tread where the angels fear to go, but you keep trying to get too close. Save myself by turning into stone.
66% volume. We know the Wonderboom 2 has a decent upper bass kick and it holds its own with its upper bass kick. Minus 17.8 at 94 Hz. Basically on the par with the Flip 5, slightly better than the Flip 4. But after that upper bass peak, which is all it actually keeps in terms of bass, 77 Hz, 60 Hz, it's way down. Flip 5 has a thicker bass, and the Flip 4 better than the Wonderboom 2, can't match the Flip 5. But of course the Flip 4 much stronger elsewhere across the frequency range. Flip 4, Flip 5, Flip 4, Flip 5, and then the Wonderboom 2. However, in terms of clarity, around a 3.5 kilohertz mark, the Wonderboom 2 does have a peak there. Minus 42, it's a bigger peak than the Flip 5, which is really all about the bass. And the Flip 4, minus 42, about the same. It's just that the Flip 4 is stronger across the frequency range altogether. The Wonderboom 2 dips after that 3.5 kilohertz peak. So we know where we are. When you're on axis, these two speakers aren't being favoured because the drivers, the woofers, are on axis, whereas with the Wonderboom, drivers are off axis. However, if I'm just trying to compare, you know, if you was in one seated position and which one you're most likely to use, then that's going to be face on. Just remember, in real life, you've only got to turn that a little bit and suddenly it's going to sound a little bit sharper, but you're losing some of that stereo. But what you can't do with these speakers is turn that right round like that and that one right round like that. That's now still sounds exactly the same, and this sounds like you got it the wrong way round. Just bear that in mind in these tests that obviously favour these two JBLs. So I'm going to do the outdoor, I'm not going to do the outdoor test at all. I'm going to do the maximum test, but what I am going to do, because it's a maximum test, I'm going to do that in default mode, then I'm going to turn that on so it's in outdoor mode, and also I'm going to do another one where it's in true loudest mode, so it's that way on. I'm going to call that on axis because I'm on axis to the woofer, off axis to the woofer, on axis to the woofer. That's going to sound the loudest because the high pitches is what your ears perceive as being the loudest, and then against these two speakers. So a full test of how loud can they go, can they really hurt your ears?
I won't give up, I'll take my chances, beat the luck, I'm gonna show you, so just wait and see. No one can handle this fight, got the blood of a tiger, and I don't care anymore, I'm done with trying to feel worth it, gotta know that I earned this, I'll get the life I deserve. Say I wanted so much more, I don't doubt myself like before, I know my worth, I know my ego, won't let me let my dream go, plan a trip somewhere stand mighty, I'll always thank my family just for beating me. Don't know where to go and I know how to stop, I'm gonna work hard so I don't need a lot, never complain for the pain that I felt, cause it gave me the power to stand up for myself. I'm rapping Cali, New York or Hawaii, I won't give up till the moment I die, vacation is patience and I'm running low, I set my goals for as long as I go, I know I can, I know I will, I'm gonna make my dream be real, I know there are no limits in my mind, I'll make it work, I won't give up, I'll take my chances, prove them wrong, people who keep asking for a plan B. No one can handle this fight, got the blood of a tiger, and I don't care anymore, I'm done with trying to feel worth it, gotta know that I earned it, I'll get the life I deserve. I won't let it go. Can handle this fight, got the blood of a tiger, and I don't care anymore, I'm done with trying to feel worth it, gotta know that I earned it, I'll get the life I deserve. I can do it, I can prove it every night and every day, till I live in California.
Maximum volume, the Flip 4, when measured by LUFS, is the loudest, minus 14.6. Then Wonderboom 2, outdoor mode, measured on axis to the woofers, well, on one side of the woofers, minus 14.8, not almost identical to the Flip 4. And actually, if you was to measure it, say, from average RMS, it's louder, minus 18.4, minus 18.9. So the Wonderboom 2 certainly capable of matching the Flip 4 and the Flip 5 in terms of sheer loudness. And don't forget, sounds exactly the same front to back. Flip 4, Flip 5, on axis only really for loudness. On axis peak 93.4 compares to 92.9, so it's got a bigger peak measured on axis to the woofer. But the Wonderboom 2 does not have the lower bass of the Flip 4. Then we have the Flip 5, which does have the bass, and although not as loud in LUFS terms than the Flip 4, does have a deeper bass, 75 Hz, minus 25.3, minus 24.5, nearly a decibel louder in terms of the bass, followed by a Wonderboom 2 in outdoor mode, off axis, so that's in stereo mode, face on, but only a tiny bit behind the Flip 5. And then, again, almost the same if you measure RMS, has a bigger peak at 93.2 decibels than the Flip 5, which doesn't have much outside of the bass. And then followed in last place by the Wonderboom 2, default mode, on axis. In this orientation, it is quite a bit behind the others in terms of absolute loudness, but you have options with the Wonderboom 2, 360-degree speaker. You don't with the Flip 4 and the Flip 5. So really, you could call it a tie between Flip 4 and Wonderboom 2, outdoor mode, on axis for sheer loudness. If you're watching YouTube, that's your friend, and the JBLs are not your friends at 200 and 300 200, 300 millisecond delays, you're going to be well out of sync. You're not going to like that. It's going to be your friend. If you're 360 degree, that's going to be your friend. If you want a bit of stereo and you like it, you know, much more defined, the Flip 4 is going to be your friend. If you like bass heavy for the size and you like mono, that's going to be your friend. But obviously the Flip 5 makes most sense as a pair. It comes alive as a pair. In mono, it's mono. I do find the Flip 5 over a long distance a bit tiring because there's not a lot of sparkle. It is about that bass weight, which is really nice for the first half an hour or whatever. And it's really nice if you're going to party out. But if you want a long extended listening, you're listening to different genres, the Flip 5 is not your friend. I find it tiring. You're missing a lot from along that frequency range. It doesn't have the high end, and it doesn't have the mids. The mid is quite well judged for a bit of fun in many ways, although it doesn't dig quite as deep. There isn't as much difference as you might think in terms of the bass between the Flip 4 and the Flip 5, but because the Flip 4 has a more extended frequency range, it does sound noticeably brighter when this is tuned to be bass heavy, but not necessarily because it's so much. It's about 5 hertz deeper, you know, like for like. So it does go a bit deeper, but not as deep as the actual sound itself would have you think, because they're cutting off some of the rest of the frequency range to make it sound even more bass heavy than it is. But this is really safe. Now there is a bit of a hollow nature, if I'm being honest, and maybe part of that is because the woofers are on an alpha axis. I have to say though, at 65 quid, and maybe I'll get a second one for stereo listening, and maybe it will be my travel favourite rather than a pair of Flip 5s, you know, for small form factor. But I find it very easy to, I find it very safe, whereas I can get very tired with the Flip 5 listening after a while. This is, I don't get that, I can still get some defined vocals. I can still get that, although it doesn't dig that deep in the bass, there is a nice upper bass kick. And because it's very round, which is a kind of bass that I like, I don't particularly like very fast, sharp bass. So this is the kind of bass I like, although it doesn't dig that deep. But it covers what it doesn't do very well with what it does do, if that makes sense to you. So it is a speaker I like, the Wonderboom 2. No, it doesn't sound the greatest thing ever, but it doesn't sound bad with anything, whereas I can get tired with some of these, both of the Flip 4s. Well, they suit different genres, and I can get tired. I could demand, I want a bit more bass, and here a bit more in the mids, and it was just a bit more defined in the vocals. And I'm not saying that, I'm aware of what I'm missing, but it's not a deal breaker on a very long-term listen. I got something out of my Wonderboom 2 video, and I thank you for watching.